I will keep going with the last session that we have with Netzer about intergenerational sustainability. And I think that now we are moving about the sustainability of our movement. Not only because the intergenerational dialogue is something about what we need to rethink. David asked me to some breaking points. It's not, I don't really want to have to share a speech. I want to share with all of you some ideas, faithful to my style, disruptive and provocative. It's not that I am right, the opposite. I want really to break out some ideas to work after that together, because I think really that this is a dialogue, working in process. This is really partnership. No one knows exactly how really we need to move on. But I think that everyone has an experience and can add value to the conversation, not a frontal one. No? It's not this the mood that we need to use. But some of the point is, I have some questions to share, and maybe we can find out together the answers. The first one is if we are a movement or a denomination. Movement or denomination. Sorry, my English is what kind of... This, for me, it's important because change everything for us. If we need to keep going like a denomination, we are keeping the status quo and to do some work in marketing to outreach more clients to our denomination and to explain why we are in the right position to invite the people to move to our denomination. But if we are not a denomination, we are a movement, we need to come back to the verb. That means to move. To move. Moving. Progress, no, but progress is for me one dimension of how we move. Because for me, move. I can tell this in another way. We need to recalibrate our GPS. It's like Waze. Yeah, recalculating. Okay, this is the session. Recalculating, okay. We know that we want to go there, but sometimes you need to find out the right way to achieve what you are looking for. And you said, Sandra, it's correct. The verbs that we are using are, for me, very interesting. Because if we are a label, a brand, a denomination, a stream, we talk about progressive Judaism. This biennial invites us to think about progressive Judaism. It's not the same if you really use your energy, your funds, your human resources, your structure to keep going like progressive Judaism, or if you really want to progressive Judaism. There are two different conversations. Both of them possible, but they are different. For me, they are different. And one of the things that we talked before is how we can really align hard work with passion. What comes first? Okay, we can really not encourage our people to be passionate about what we are doing if we are working to sell a final product. If we are really renewing the spirit of our ambition from the beginning, what the reform movement was, we can really come back to our sources and to get the inspiration to be passionate about what we are doing. For example, if we are reform Jews or we are reforming Judaism. The same with the reconstructionist, and renewal. We kill the verb and we use the product. We kill the action and we use the brand. And this is something that I really believe that we need to change. If we are communities of practices, maybe we need to change the questions. It's not more what we believe. Maybe. We can believe, but maybe it's not the question. What we offer in competition with different streams, or really what we are doing. What are our practices? And if we have an open mind and wider approach about that, we need really to change our approach to find out which audience is our audience. For me, again, I am not right, but I want to think with all of you. For me, the audience is not religious Jews in any denomination. It's not religion that we are looking for, meaningful Judaism. We include religion, but it's not the paradigm that we are using. We are moving from the idea that our big audience that are challenging us is the secular Jews. If we are trying to convince Orthodox or conservative Jews to move to the left, we fail. But if we are trying really to reach out secular Jews and to tell them, you don't need to come to our shul. We invite you, but at the end of the day, you can stay there. But like a secular Jew, we have a lot of things to offer you to be aligned with our vision and our passion. What that means? That we are not a theology. We have theology, but we are not a theology. We are a different thing. We are moving exactly from religious practice to ethical behavior. That means that if we address our audience, secular Jews, and we are looking for ethical behavior, doesn't matter how they pray. Doesn't matter how they fulfill our halachic way. Again, I am not saying that it's not important. I think it's very, very important. I am trying to look about the efficiency of what we are achieving and how this efficiency brings to us more input to feed the passion. That is not the same to success. There are two different things because we are aligned with values. We are using marketing, but we are not a business. We need to be sustainable, but we are not looking for profit. That means for me that if we are moving from religion to secular audience, we need to be clear why we are religious people. Why? Because we are looking for spiritual meaning. That means that maybe we have a fast track to go to the secular Jews and to say, what we offer to you is a meaningful spiritual life. Stay secular, but not indifferent to spiritual life. And we are the only movement, if we move, we are the only movement that can offer to secular Jews to grow up in the spiritual life. Because we are not imposing. We are not saying what they need to do. We are offering to them different ways to grow up in this direction. The youth, or the young, or the next generation. I believe that it's not the same to have the youth generation in dialogue to think together. We need to really have an internal revolution in our movement. For me, the revolution means that for us, the young people are not teenagers, that they want to change the world and to replace us because we fail. It's not the same to have youth in your movement to think that you need to treat them like teenagers. And it's not the same to have young leaders that the behavior is like teenagers, and we are the adults and they're coming to change everything. But the paradigm of the next generation, and we worked this morning with that, is a different one. You can invest hours, you can learn a lot, but you never can get what they are thinking and the way that they are thinking. Maybe the option is to empower them to lead us. This is, for me, the key partnership. They have different paradigms for entrepreneurship. They are living in the social media. They are not using social media. We use social media. They live there. They are fluid. They are open-minded. They are changing all the time. If we really want to go to the future, we need to give them to drive us to the future, because they are there. And this is for us an opportunity. Why? Because we are reformed. Then we can reform the structure of governance of our institutions. To finish, I want to say that from revolution to evolution, there is also a dimension of time in our movement if we move. That is not to keep going the status quo. What really we mean when we are talking about future? And our attitude that can feed our passion is when really in the Jewish tradition we realize that we never wait for the future. We feel our identity in the roots of the past. But we are building in the present the future that we dream, that we hope. We are doing it. And the only real time that we can change things, the only one is the present. It's now. We are not a passive movement that is waiting. We are active builders of the future in the present, with connection with our past, but not complaining about what's happened. We remember what's happened. And this is our really strength. What we call Torah, but to make it more easy, Torah means for us that we are the people of the book, but the truth is that we are the people of the memory, collective memory. The book is the symbol, the memory is the verb. When we are doing memory means that it's not history. It's not what we remember. It's that we are bringing to the present the same values from the legacy of the past and to doing the bridge between the context to build new meanings in the present that anticipate the future. We are futures builders in the present. This is progressing. This is reforming, this is renewal, this is for me passion. To be passionate about not to wait the future and to build it now. Finally, thing is the glossary of our movement. The words that we use, the concept that we use, we need to refine it. The way that we approach every one of these words, for me, is old. And we need to change our mind because most of us, I am part of the problem, not of the solution, we are reformodoxing. We are reformodoxing because we are so convinced that the reform that we done in the past is right that we keep going with the same. We cannot be passionate to be reformodoxing. We need to move from our reformodoxia to a polydoxia. If we really are a movement and not a brand and a denomination, and we are addressing and challenging secular issues, we need to move from denomination to integration of diversity, pluralism, and different options to become modern Jews, aligned with spiritual life and aligned with ethical behavior. The behavior is not how we pray. We pray to align ourselves with the values of our behavior. We need to pray, we need to go to the shul, we need to learn, we need to do all the things. But at the end of the day, is what this biennial offered to us, to become progressing actors of our Judaism 8 days in a week. Not Kabbalat Shabbat, no Shakarit, not holidays, 8, not 7, 8 days in a week. And this is the meaning of these new words. What means for us Israel? What means for us Zionism? What means for us Jewish peoplehood? All these key questions about the same thing set that we use in the Reformodoxy approach. That means Torah, mitzvot, and pray. For me, it's a challenge. We need to lead a new definition with loyalty to the past, but with the courage and the passion to use it for a new future.
And that's why he's the president of the World Union. So in the next approximately 40 minutes, possibly a little bit less because we're running late, you've all been given a pen and paper, and you see here a blank whiteboard. We're going to do an exercise that I learnt from a rabbi I highly respect, and so that I don't embarrass the person probably in the room still, because I can't see past those lights. I'm going to give you an exercise to do in groups of 4 in a moment. And then approximately 10 minutes later, I'm going to give you a second exercise to do in the same group. And your group is going to come up with an agreed proposition in each of the 2 exercises, which we will then put on the whiteboard. I have you intrigued? That's good. Before I do that, please put your hand up if you've had a really good conversation with someone from a community that is not your own while you were here. Put your other hand up if you have the intention of staying in touch with that person and building a relationship with them. Welcome to Relational Judaism. You have just begun your journey. You're going to find yourself in groups of 4. Please make sure that there are a minimum of 2 communities in your group. You can move chairs as you wish, but you're going to get started in 3 minutes' time. The first question is, how do I envision my community being better in the next 3 to 5 years? Quickly form groups of 4 with people who are not from your community, starting now. You now have the task of agreeing your proposition, and then in 5 minutes I will give you the second question. So your task now is to agree your proposition in your group. If you haven't written your proposition, you'll get another moment in a moment, but I now need to refocus you, and you'll see instantly why I have not given you the second question before you've written up your proposition for the first one. So the second question is about to be turned around on the whiteboard, because Jocelyn likes doing it with a whiteboard. What will you do to make your vision happen, and with whom? And you need to write your answer down. It's not an exam, but you need to agree your answer and write it down. You'll have 10 minutes and then we'll have feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move to the third section of this workshop. So I'm going to ask you, sad as it is to terminate the present discussion, a brief commercial break. The owner of this kippah, whose head must be getting cold, there we have the winner, yes.
There's also a talit bag out at reception, or at the registration. We aren't sure who it belongs to.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask one person from each group, and Rabbi Adi Cohen at the back has a microphone, and I'll share this one as well.
I'm not afraid to use it.
Yeah. To succinctly, difficult as that is, that might exclude the rabbis, never mind. to succinctly articulate the first proposition. Jocelyn's going to make some notes, and then we're going to connect them to the second proposition. So I'm just going to go round the room. Adi, we'll start at that end, and we'll just literally give everyone a turn, but please succinctly, because we have time, we just want to know the point. I'm sure there are other discussions, and just so that you know, at the end, we actually are going to collect your notes and share them with all of our communities as part of building our culture of collaboration. Okay? So, first group.
I guess our vision, what we want to see from Judaism in the next 3 years, is creating this sense of passion identity where Judaism informs all of our practices but isn't confined to our existing institutions. Our existing institutions can still play a role, but we have to develop and move outside of them and create spaces where people can be fluid about the way they engage with Judaism, but ensuring that Judaism is what informs that practice.
Thank you. Next group, please. We'll just keep going around the room.
So we spoke about seeing a movement, as Sergio spoke about, and a communal movement, moving away from our silos and into a communal situation where we become Jewish leaders once again in the broader community, speaking about our movement to the broad community and through communal engagement.
We talked about more engagement and having multiple points of entry, not only services, and engaging our members through word of mouth.
This is going to be pretty simplistic, I think. We talked about our own synagogue community, essentially, and firstly to resolve internal conflicts which we've had, to get those sorted out, to get more young people involved, and we weren't quite sure how we were going to do that, but we thought that was important. We also thought it was important to hang on to the entitled elderly there, and also to sort of expand the relational Judaism that you've been talking about, which I thought would be great for the community.
So our proposition is to activate the dormants. And we have Miriam to thank for the idea of how to do this. Well, one way to do this, that she has had experience of. And that is that post-bar and bat mitzvah students, we call them students? People, they become assistants to any educational activity involving children at the synagogue, like they might become assistants to the next B'nai Mitzvah group, to the teachers. They might be assistants to Bubs and Bagels, or the group for toddlers, or the group for older people even, whatever. But the important part of this is that their parents, because they're at a young age, have to bring them. And we invite the parents in to have coffee and bagels. So they become part of what's going on. And at the same time, there is a parallel course being run with the B'nai Mitzvah course. So we have a course for parents. Now, I'm not sure what's in that course. This lady will tell us sometime. But there is a parallel course for parents. And that we thought these were very concrete things that could be done.
We've got two more groups at the front. Everybody will be I'll plan the time so that we can hear from everyone.
Talking to, yeah. Our group sort of felt that we need to know what our congregation, all the cohorts, what their expectations are, to actually know what our congregation and what our demographic really was. And then we would use that information to downsize and focus, not do everything for everyone. And also, I think, in my case, I think there's a lot going on outside our congregation. Think about how we can incorporate some of those things.
Our group spoke about communication and renewal as the two big factors. Communication, just like getting to know what the capacity of all the different age groups are and what they're interested in. And then renewal as in like making sure there's people with different points of views in the different like boards or whatnot in the communities, so that they're not like only long-standing like board members that have set ideas, that there are people coming through to push change and to really help push the community further.
We talked about how to build a stable core, and because stability is important if you want to grow, and if you want to move forward. And we talked about building a strong core between the rabbi and the board and how we build outwards from there, because if you're not stable to start with, you're on shaky ground.
I'm taking notes. No pressure over there.
Well, we talked a bit about financial sustainability, which is absolutely critical. If we don't have that, then we're in big trouble. So I think that has to be on the board there somehow. How we solve that, well, that's another thing. So this is a summary. Facilitate conversations with our communities to think more broadly about progressing Judaism, as we've heard earlier, and realigning our boards to a growth mindset, possibly with the assistance of the UPJ's resources. So what we're getting that there is it's a bit like you were talking about there, about engaging with our communities and finding out what they think, what they want, and engaging with the UPJ to try and maybe have a facilitator or somebody who can help run these conversations, or develop that line of thinking.
We just felt strongly that maybe the board structure we have itself needs to be rethought in the process.
Perhaps it's a little longer term than 3 to 5 years, but Steffi's kind of scared me. And I said, I think we need to work on how to be self-sufficient without membership fees, if that's what's going to happen. And so we actually were doing a lot of brainstorming about how that might look. Fees for service, leasing your premises, a hog pack, or sell our real estate because we're all on Zoom anyway. So it just it's kind of out there, but I think we're going to be looking at it. So.
Our group discussed many issues, but the distillation of our little lot was we need younger people in leadership roles who are very passionate about connecting their Judaism. We want them to understand that needs will drive their Judaism if they're passionate. We want them to understand that if they belong to us, they must give to us and go beyond their religious beliefs. Bit of humanity, connecting individuals with each other. And third, and the final point was the structure of the buildings doesn't necessarily mean who we are. We should be going out to where the people are and running things like pop-ups, going to their communities, so that we think about our spaces as not being rigid but being fluid.
I just want to add, it's not just about the youth. I need to emphasize that. It's not just about the youth, and it's not just about the future. It's very much about now, and if we can't be passionate and tap into our passion here and now at any age we are, then there's nothing that anyone will want to get from us. We can't pass on the flame.
I think many of the themes that have been talked about were part of our discussions as well. I think mostly we were really talking about the importance of having more people engaged in efficient and effective communication, both within and outside the community. And then when it came to sort of thinking about how we come about it, it is also about rethinking, not just in terms of the physical model of a synagogue, but also the organizational structure and form of a synagogue, and the idea of the importance of both sort of tapping into both local and global connections. Do you want to, in terms, and the connections to the outside of our community as well?
Our group did touch on some of the themes that have already been mentioned, but to be quite honest, we got totally off topic. We had a lovely chat, and we haven't got... Sorry.
We get to the last group, you're going to tell us your vision question, and you're going to immediately then move to how can I fulfil that commitment and with whom, and then we will go in reverse back around the room. I'm hoping that as you listen to what people say, you discover an idea that may not have been your own that you feel attracted to. And that you will find someone after this discussion who put forward that idea and exchange phone numbers. And build a relationship with that person whose idea you liked. And if enough of that happens, we at the UPJ will feel as though we've done something good this weekend.
Joss, you turned the board over too quickly.
Oh, I thought you wanted
No, they're going to do both in one go.
So how do you want the board?
That's all right. You'll just write their first answer at the bottom. We'll turn it around. Everyone can look at it afterwards. And we'll also put your first answer at the top of the other side. That's right. Go for it. So, just do it sideways for a minute.
Sideways,
Okay, just for a moment. This is called two sides of the same coin.
I wish it would just...
I'll do a quick commercial break. I gave a course 15 years ago now entitled Two Sides of the Same Coin at the University of New South Wales for the Jewish students. The room filled. They all thought it was fundraising for August, and in fact the talk was about how fighting anti-Semitism and standing up for Israel were in fact two sides of the same coin. The Hillel person didn't like it.
Go Noah!
So one more point there and then we turn it back. Sally, what's your point on how do you envision your community being better?
Okay, so we had a really interesting discussion. There were three small congregations represented and one huge one, so it was interesting to get those perspectives. Generally, one of the key points was two generations under participating, so not just the one below, but the one below that as well, so underneath our sort of extreme age, really. And opportunities to participate through discussion groups that reach out to wide audiences. And I must admit I'm feeling a bit radical about this because I really don't worry whether people attend in person or not, as long as they're attending. So we need to give more opportunity to participate, whatever medium works for that particular person to participate. And people are thinking, oh, no, we have to meet in person. Look, we've managed it brilliantly over the last 2.5 years. We have created online communities of immense power, and so now I regularly participate in services in Dallas, Texas, because they're all online and streamed, and I feel a part of that community as well as these ones because I have friends there. So the relationships can build no matter what the medium you are working in, and we need to rethink our business model. So I know that, sorry, I'm an accountant, I can't help myself. We think too much about buildings as though they are the centre of the universe. They are not.
and they are not for the generations that are coming through. They live online, as has been said so often. They live on their phones, they live in social media, they do not just use it. And so getting an understanding of that and using that to change our operating model is absolutely critical if we want to build participation. But on the back of that, when we do meet, that relational Judaism is incredibly important, so people feel welcome. Now, when they meet, that might be making people feel welcome in an online forum as well. So working in those media to actually establish the relationships and build relational practices, that can all be done online. I'm sorry I'm so radical about it, but it's just that I've lived online. I do it in my daily business all the time, and it's so possible. There's so many opportunities. We need to be building those opportunities for anyone to participate. Whatever works for you is fine by me. If you're a member of you can be a member of Temple Sinai in Wellington and you live in Alaska. It doesn't matter. As if you want to participate, you're there.
Now, okay, Sally's group. What will you do to make your vision happen, and with whom?
We haven't talked about it. Are we supposed to talk about it?
That was the second part of the exercise. Okay, we'll move to the... Who's worked on what will you do to make your vision happen, and and with whom? Hands up. So we'll go there first, giving the others a chance to catch up.
So we just came back to the idea of the power of a phone call and building small communities and empowering members to create this engagement, talking about that in many cases you actually need to have a discussion of permission. People don't realize that they actually can do this stuff. They can help, and so if you're trying to make this vision of a engaged community of connections and relational Judaism, you need to actually have that conversation, grab that coffee and ask for that.
So Ian's going to have a cup of coffee with someone new next week.
Oh, I always do.
Yeah.
I'm open and invited.
Thanks. To what you were speaking about, Sally? Yeah, to what you were speaking about, we would like to use the institutions to break down the institutions because we need to shift away from what we have to what we actually need to be, which is not bound to brick and mortar. Which is not to say there isn't a place for it, but perhaps with the communal movement, we'll have relevant and well-placed brick and mortar. We also want to very much empower our young people to lead, which we believe is largely as a result of communication, because we also need to make sure that all our ages are reflected and have a voice, that there's some egalitarian kind of equal playing field, so not age before youth, but ideas are ideas. And perhaps that involves mentoring, because age does bring experience, but youth brings passion and ideas and change, and we will all reach a use-by date, and some sooner than others, right? That's why you're looking at me. No, I'm looking at me. Me. My use-by date is coming. Finally, refiguring how we actually create our spaces and taking a really good example from the workplace. How has it changed, particularly in the last 3 years? Workspaces don't look anything like they did when probably any of us entered the workforce, except for very few, very younger people. And looking at what they're doing, they're flexible. They're spaces that allow for individuality and needs of the individual. So, and specialist groups and
go on.
Specialist groups and interest groups and so on and so forth. So really becoming very much dynamic movement in the 21st century.
Hands up, please, the next group that looked at what will you do to make your vision happen?
Well, ours was very simple, in that my friend here and I Dorothy and I are going to go home and we're going to write a paper and present it, submit it to the board, the chair, excuse me, and the relevant committees to take on as a submission in relation to getting people back in, but through the B'nai Mitzvah program and their parents. So we're going to next generation.
Thank you. Next hands up, please. There's a group over there, and then we'll come to this. We'll go to this side first, and then over there. Okay, Seffi's next, I think.
We realise that we don't have any answers, but it is time to actually start asking the questions of there's a real feel in the room of the direction we're generally going, but to invite the different cohorts in our community, 20 to 30-year-olds, 30 to 40-year-olds, yes, all the different groups that are a cohort, and ask them these questions. What do you think? How do you imagine? What are you prepared to do? Where do you want to head? And I would like the UPJ to take this on as a focus for our project for the coming year, to actually start looking at these questions and to perhaps coordinate it through the region.
Quickly add that North Shore Temple Emmanuel did a very good process a couple of years ago with community consultations, and we had, I can't remember exactly, but it was more than 20 focus groups on this. So there's a good model that's already out there.
I'll just continue on this, and I know I'm part of the co-chair of Relational Judaism, but in our congregation, and obviously North Shore, we had several times a series of brunches organized by geography of 6 to 8 people getting together. And we were just meeting today at breakfast, a few of us from Beit Shalom, and going to institute this on it's a grandiose scale, it's a lot of work, but on smaller scales, having post-Shabbat, Saturday afternoon, inviting people over, or Sunday morning. And within that, you can do one relational meeting among people, but in that small group of 6 to 8 people, you can get a lot of the information that you're looking for in a chat session rather than a focus group, if you want to call it that.
Sefi, Trevor, and then whomever want to speak.
Thank you. So we spoke about the downsize and focus. That's what we want to do. There's a very important concept in Netzer that would save all of us hours. It's called Bin Said. So someone said it before me and better. I'm not going to repeat it. So Bin said about listening to others and knowing what we need to do. And then with the actual downsize and focus is understanding that we will not be able to cater for everyone. Deciding who is the target audience, or target audiences in some cases, and then focusing on them, knowing that we're going to miss others. But there's nothing to do about it. There's no way for us to cater for everyone, but to try to do what we do in a very good way, but very focused.
Our group, having decided that what we need to do better in the next 3 to 5 years is to develop real willingness to communicate efficiently and effectively within and outside our congregation or our communities, the way we decided that it would be best to achieve this, and I'm pleased to say that this came from other members of the group, not me. I'm already a rusted-on believer in and supporter of relational Judaism. So this suggestion came from other members of this group here. And the belief is that before we can reach out and expand our membership, we need to get the existing membership fully engaged in congregational affairs. And other members of this group, with which I readily agree, came up with the idea that what we need to do is encourage relationships within the community. In other words, we need to have chavura groups to generate motivation
and influence within the congregational community, which then can, once that is working effectively, can be spread to reach outside the community or congregation itself.
I saw one more hand up, which I think was Avishai's, and then we'll pull the discussion together. And Rabbi Cohen would like a word as well.
We're probably repeating a little bit some of the suggestions that have already been put, but we had 4
Been said.
Pardon? Pardon? Okay. Okay, so we had, so the 3 things that we had were perhaps a little bit different. Were hub and spoke, where we, rather than expecting people to come to us, we need to go to people and perhaps create communities, and then in time, perhaps those communities will come back to the hub. A membership model, we do believe that there should be a review of our membership model to make it perhaps more accessible to people. And a key element of that would be understanding our customers. So again, we very much agree with focus groups to try and understand what our customers want. The other point, I'll say it anyway, was B'nai Mitzvot, connecting families at a key touch point in their life cycle.
And I think crucially, we need to be discussing cost of living as a huge barrier to engagement at the moment. I think we know that Judaism works in community, and if we want there to be sustainability, either we need satellite communities to where it's affordable, or we need to be helping Jewish people live closer to the community. But without it, we're not going to sustain ourselves.
Now, can I congratulate you? I'm going to invite Avi Cohen to say a couple of comments in a moment, and I have a couple of wrap-up comments. But before I do that, my heartfelt congratulations. I watched intently the quality of the discussions that happened in this room. You guys are really, really fantastic, because ultimately you've just created a really important collaborative community across the UPJ. Rabbi Cohen.
So I will start with your first question, where I would like to see my congregation in 3 to 5 years. And my very simple answer is that I would like it to be the place that you're longing to belong to. As simple as that. The Jewish center, where we are not a progressive, not any title, the place that you're belonging to belong to. The way that I would like to do it, or the way that is my approach of doing it, is adopting the shtetl mentality. That this place is the place that you are going to love and to be loved. And if you are not there, you're missing on something great. And I believe that people will come or not come because of finance or because of other reasons, cost of living, traffic jams. But if they don't come, I want them to miss a heartbeat because they missed on something good. So that's my strategic plan for the future.
Now, here comes some practical comments. Practical comments. Got your attention? Very good. There are multiple ways we can keep the collaboration going. Please, you put your hands up and said, I will continue the conversation intentionally with someone I met here. Commit to doing that. Then, if you are wondering what another congregation is doing to solve a particular problem, or when we circulate all of these ideas, you want to know with whom you might engage to progress them and how they're going on the other side of the continent. Or you're too scared to ask your president, so you put your note up. That's why we have created the resource sharing network, and we need you to, all of you, to contact Jocelyn if you haven't already registered. We'll issue you the passcode in. There will be not only resources going up there, but chats on particular topics where we can share ideas. You discover an idea from another congregation and you take that back to your board or leadership group. Your board or leadership group might say, well, we actually have a policy about that. Can I put that on the resource sharing network? And I remain hopeful that within the next few months, there will be a buzz across the progressive Jewish communities across Australia, New Zealand and Asia, where people are actually sharing ideas, learning from each other. Someone puts up an idea, can I ring you and talk to you about that? That would be fantastic. Oh, I'm coming to Perth next week. Can I meet with whoever got that project going, please? And the answer has to be, yes, we can. And if it's yes, we can, I imagine that we will be the communities that Jews want to belong to. That's what I imagine, and I hope you can imagine it with me and make it happen. And with that, I want to thank you all. I'm going to close off this session because I'm out of time and I have to go across to the closing remarks. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Susan, but may I please thank you for your wonderful collaborative participation.